Okay, we are live. 9:09 Mountain Time, 6/26, 2024. Going to talk about the Daily Bread and Circuses PSYOP of the day. The big deal yesterday, Julian Assange was released on the, I think, 306th anniversary of the founding of the Freemasons. And there's a little bit about that we could talk about, although I look at him as another one of these two-dimensional characters propped up there to hype up the QAnons. I don't know if it really means anything. He's not an auto hoaxer. And if you're not an auto hoaxer, what can you leak that's of any substance whatsoever? It really just comes down to psyop theater, psyopera theater. And I don't mean to be totally dismissive about it, but it's really irrelevant to our interests here if it's all contained within their box, which presumes certain things to be real. For example, nukes. If you still exist in the world where you might have to duck and cover because the guy on the TV has a countdown, we're not in the same universe. And so the ideas don't have the same impact here off-world stage. But I want to point out too, auto hoaxers, media skeptics, we're not paranoid conspiracists. We're unveiling the conspirators. The MSM name calling is all projection. They call us hoaxers. No, they hoax, we critique. They call us hoaxers, makes no sense. And the thing we do here is metascript decode as critics of world stage theater, what I call the theater of Psywar. And we are the cutting edge. We are the cutting fringe at this. And we have been, I think, elevating the standards for some time. And I do get into a bit of conflict here and there with people who are still adhering to the old programming. And we have been, from our perspective here, we're looking at it as you got the programmed and alternative programmed. But deprogrammed are a completely separate group, and we occupy this area of what I call the off-world stage. In other words, we're not assuming that the position anti the media is therefore the truth, because the media is a liar. It's not true. We have two liars. We have one group liars called the media, and we have truthers who are unwittingly lying on behalf of whoever's supplying them their propaganda. Propaganda mules is what I call them. And you know it's propaganda if it's based on fear and you can't reality test it. So you have to kind of just act as though it's hypothetically true, so it's true. It could be true, therefore it's true. Let's act like it's true. Okay, well, that's the definition of a paranoid conspiracy theorist, which we are not. Just want to make that distinction here right off the bat. No one here is interested in activism, chopping off heads, or going to war against the Soy Boys or Proud Boys. Okay, we are joined here by Diana South, Elephant Tusk 737, Let's Go, Ollie Goering, Jock. Elephant Tusk says, I actually got to tell this woman today she believes everything she sees on the screen and she needs to start auto-hoaxing. Needless to say, she didn't like it. Yeah, that's like going to someone who's exiting church and saying, you know, these religions have a vested interest in controlling your worldview. And they're just vestiges from a pre-scientific, pre-enlightenment era. I mean, you could just try to buzzkill them on their religious views, but to me, it's more like ignorance is bliss in a sense. Apathy is bliss, I should say, because they're not 100% ignorant. They're ignorant about what it is they believe in. They believe it's true, but they're apathetic. Like people act as though they're not scared of nukes. Like they're not scared of terrorism. Like they're not scared of mass shooters. And they just go about their daily lives. But they believe these things exist. And it's not because they're courageous or brave. It's because they've adopted the apathy required to function. We, on the other hand, the deprogrammed, don't believe in these things. So we're similarly relaxed from the perspective of truthers or the woke. Like we're not agitated. But that's because we have peace of mind. And peace of mind and apathy are two different things. And these are important distinctions to make. And another very important distinction I've been honing in on of late is the distinction between a low information believer and the informed non-believer, and why the informed non-believer has a superior position to that of the low info believers. Okay, other thing in Psywar news right now, there's still the Boeing Starliner stranded in space. Someone had asked me today if I think the astronauts are in space. I guess they didn't know. And that's because I'm not combative on Twitter. I don't go out of my way to try to convince people, hey, everything you know is fake. I'm just, not that I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm communicating to the think tank, those of us with our level of situational awareness. I don't really care about these lost causes, not my problem. And I'll get to those comments because I find them fascinating. But the mission right now, and I cover this because I know it's part of the bigger psychological war that's ongoing, worldview warfare. And one of the major components of their worldview warfare is the space program. Space, you should just look at space as a metaphor for inner space. And they're controlling your inner space, your worldview, by defining everything from the big picture on down. But right now, the Boeing Starliner, and we predicted this, we're like, hey, look, it's Boeing. Boeing has been having issues all year, ever since Leave the World Behind and the planes falling. So here we have Boeing having issues. Whistleblowers being killed. Leaky spaceship. They send the capsule up there. Multiple failures. The thrusters aren't firing. Docking delayed. Now they're finally in the ISS, but they're in limbo. They are going to have to wait until there's another chance to go down. So there have been a number of issues. There was a canceled spacewalk. There was a drill about astronauts in distress that was broadcast as though it were real. Later they said it was just a drill. These are arbitrary distinctions because it's all just a drill, but the public thinks these things are real. So I explained to this person who asked me, "Do you not believe in outer space?" And I'm like, well, no, this is all a simulation performed on Earth. This is an ongoing 20 plus year reality TV show. It's propaganda. Not that hard to grasp. Occam's razor, what's more likely? It's propaganda, or they're actually floating around in space, and from space it looks like crap CGI. Now, if they showed us stuff from space that looked real, yeah, I'd be on Team Space. I'd be like, yeah, this is real, but no, it's crap CGI. Even if the Earth is a ball, what they're showing us from NASA isn't the reality. But anyway, it turns out that the capsule that they took on the Boeing Starliner is called the Calypso. Calypso has significance, of course, to Homer, the Odyssey. After the Trojan War, Odysseus is stranded on an island for 7 years, and he can't get back to his wife and fight off the suitors because Calypso, a nymph, has him entertained in a cave. So it's a nice rest, I guess. He's not exactly tortured, but he's stranded out there in the ocean. So Odysseus, stranded in the ocean. And here we have Calypso and the two astronauts stranded. And furthermore, you could probably connect this to Space Odyssey, because ultimately what we're looking at here is the unveiling of the space program, which is really the transition of our humanity as a collective, our collective psyche moving into the space age, which is the age of being totally merged with the movies. But it also has to go along with our transition from being earthbound to a multiplanetary species. Moon landing, space station, now we're about to colonize other planets. That's our space odyssey. And it looks like this might be a clue that the next phase is about to begin. For example, before we went to the moon, you had the fiery explosion on the launch pad. Before we really figured out this low Earth orbit thing, you had the Challenger explosion. I think there has to be another immolation or some kind of space tragedy before we occupy the moon. It just seems like there's some kind of a foundational sacrifice at every major phase of this space odyssey. And I think we might be looking at the next thing, because after Odysseus leaves Calypso, he has to face trials, tribulations, cyclops, storms, and it's the beginning of his troubles. So if you ask me, the Boeing Starliner, Calypso, might just be in limbo before the bad stuff happens, which is what we've been waiting for. I also want to add to it, there are headlines about possibly SpaceX being used to rescue them, which might have some connection here to what we've been seeing earlier this year. All the references to the Drake, the dragon. You had Drake, dragon, Sir Francis Drake reference with regard to the Burning Man from St. Augustine. Maxwell Ezrella was from St. Augustine, which was burned by Sir Francis Drake. Sir Francis Drake, interestingly, his death anniversary is connected to the Challenger and Apollo 1. Then you had the Dragon's Tail spire at the Copenhagen Stock Exchange burning at the same time as this Burning Man, which happened to be the Waco anniversary. Another Burning Man day. My point being, the dragon symbolism here would be part of it if they send up SpaceX Dragon, which could be poetic. Who knows? Maybe they could have a disaster, draw down 33% of the satellites. But I'm looking forward to it, whatever it is. And the public right now believes in space junk. In fact, there are multiple articles out right now about people whose homes are being hit by space junk. And people are now asking, in fact, NASA is being sued over space junk, and people are asking, well, who's going to pay for it? Here we go. In a space fender bender, when stuff falls from the sky, who pays? USA Today. NASA confirms space debris, North Carolina, was from the Dragon. Florida family seeking damages from NASA after space debris hits home. Can we seek damages from NASA for brainwashing us? Let's just hypothetically, let's say it's true they faked the moon landing. And there's a movie coming out very soon with Scarlett Johansson called Fly Me to the Moon. And the premise of it is NASA had to fake the moon landing to trick the Russians, which is what a lot of people are going to accept. But if they did that, shouldn't they have to pay us? Because we didn't consent to it. Here's Fly Me to the Moon, marketing maven, and this is the character played by Scarlett Johansson. Kelly Jones wreaks havoc on a launch director's already difficult task. When the White House deems the mission too important to fail, Jones is directed to stage a fake moon landing as a backup. You see how they do this? So it's a backup, in case we can't do it. And if you believe this, because it's more believable than the real thing, the quote real thing, it's more believable, sure. But the problem with it is that it still assumes the existence of orbit and space travel as more than just an allegory for states of higher consciousness. I mean, NASA's a mystery school, bottom line. But Fly Me to the Moon, this isn't disclosure, it's not awakening. People are like, oh, it's soft disclosure, they're telling us. No, that's not what this is. This is a guardrail to keep you from recognizing that not only did they fake that, but it's all fake, and they're faking stuff right now today. It's not just a few 90-year-old astronauts you could point your fingers at. No, this is an ongoing hoax, real time. And it's not like NASA is this sneaky little group tricking everybody. It's international. The masses are being tricked. We live in a two-tiered society, exoteric, esoteric, and most people are on the exoteric side. And they take everything literally, if they see it on the screen. Media fundamentalists. It's a mass psychosis. You could call it a philosophical crisis. All right, let's continue here. This is just Ips Evening Deprogramming, adding context we think that people might want to know. Who's responsible for space debris falling on your house? This is from Forbes. The issue of space debris crashing down to Earth and causing damage is marginal and low risk in the grand scheme. The big issue for space debris is how much junk is accumulating in low Earth orbit. This is creating hazards that could lead to collisions and debris cascades, making it difficult to conduct activities in space. One big problem is that it's not economically feasible to remove the debris that exists in orbit currently. It goes on to say there are 9,000 metric tons. That's how much orbital debris is in low Earth orbit, according to NASA. That's 25,000 objects larger than 10 centimeters, 500,000 between 1 and 10 centimeters, and more than 100 million debris particles larger than a millimeter. So there you go. Nobody cares about the oceans anymore. It's all about space and space pollution. But they have been setting the stage for this. They've been using space junk in movies. I notice a trend on Netflix to show space arcs and space stations, and they always fall down. It's always the case. They fall. And why is that? Well, again, they're planting seeds. They're getting us ready with the imagery so when they start making space junk a regular thing, like a pandemic. And I remember calling this out back on 3/11/2021. NASA dropped a large crate of batteries. And that is the crate of batteries from which a piece of junk hit the home in Florida, for which NASA is being sued for $80,000. Now, they have 6 months to reply to the lawsuit, but they are being sued. All right, let me see what's going on in the comments section. All right, Shannon Jones, just in time. Diana South says, I really appreciate the term propaganda mules to their own destruction, believing they're doing the right thing. Yeah, and I call them propaganda mules because they're being led by hopium on a stick, and they're carrying all this propaganda, thinking they're doing a good deed, but what they're doing is they're doing the work of the media. Because the mainstreamers just absorb the media passively. The alternative media don't believe anything unless they discover it for themselves. So all their alternative news is just scattered around like truth or chicken feed for them to pick up, and then they spread it around. So they self-mediate, and self-mediation sounds better than being mediated from an authority, from a centralized source. Well, the thing is, all of their breadcrumbs, all of the truth or chicken feed, all of their red pills comes from the same place that manufactures the mainstream garbage. Same stuff, just contextualized differently, a different marketing tactic, and it puts them into a different category. But essentially, they're no more, actually, they're really no more free than the mainstreamers. That's kind of another misconception. It's important to look at alternative media as a subset of the mainstream. Everything in the mainstream media is presumed to exist by alt media. They just add on to it. They don't subtract. And we take a subtractive view, the negative route, which is far more sensible today given the total immersion in media, and you don't have enough time to parse it all. So you may as well just adopt a skeptical posture, although that's considered hate speech. All right, Tom103 says, good evening, super spreaders. Violet Penguin, Godzilla's coming. Oh, we have some more Godzilla connections, by the way. So Godzilla was stored sub-level 33. Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuke, which ties into Fallout, which takes place in Vault 33. So there's a lot of interesting connections here, but I want to point out that the Godzilla is the nuke and has been consistently associated with certain themes, like the color pink, but also with the freezing. So the EMP is part of the whole nuclear blast thing, and Fallout is after that. EMP would create the blackout. After the nuke, you have the potential for a nuclear winter. So these are all recurring themes. But the Godzilla thing, as it connects to this, first of all, you have the freeze, some kind of freezing beam or whatever. This is all just part of, I think, what they're preparing us for. But the titles of the movies, they all say Empire, even Frozen Empire from Ghostbusters. And EMP Empire is just a reoccurring meme they put out there. And I have an image here of Godzilla from the new Empire, the new EMP, here with the pink. And this pink correlates with Barbie. It correlates with the pink soil tackifier in Maui, with the pink background on King Charles, the pink skies. This is just one of these things we've seen in the zeitgeist, reoccurring. And we'll probably see more about this. But I have to watch the new one, the new Godzilla. There was a few other things about Godzilla, but it really mainly pertains to this idea, of course, of the creature from the sea, the kraken. And we just entered into Cancer, which is the crab or the kraken. And this actually relates to what's going on in the ISS and the Calypso thing. You see, the last year we entered into the sign of Cancers when the Titan went down to the Titanic. And the Titanic is destroyed by the iceberg. And the iceberg is just another way of representing the destroyer that brings down the West, the nuke, Godzilla. Or in the movie Don't Look Up, it was a comet. But the reoccurring theme here, of course, is the challenger in the abyss. And on the world stage, it's represented by Donald Trump, interestingly. Okay, let's continue. Violet Pengon says, SpaceX won a contract to bring the ISS down. Are they going to replace it? They got to bring better graphics, if they do. Okay, let's take a look here. SpaceX has been awarded an $843 million contract to build the vehicle that will bring the ISS out of its orbit. Make sense? So I kind of imagined it would take place with like the Dragon capsule somehow capsizing the ISS and causing a disaster. And if I was trying to fake space and people are eager to go to Mars, I would destroy their enthusiasm by sending a group of celebrities in a starship and then having it get hit by a comet. Just like the Titanic, but in space. You know, a comet is just an iceberg in space. So a space iceberg hits the starship, and nobody's interested in going to space anymore. Mango Penguin says, remember when they found a woman in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico? She escaped from being held captive, hit national news. Oh yes, I used to read true crime, and I believe that was at Elephant Butte. And I think she was held in a torture chamber, and then they looked in Elephant Butte and they found, they found parts. Oh yeah, that was David Parker Ray. I don't know the significance of it. David Parker Ray, the toy box killer. Now, this story seems believable. And I used to study true crime, but looking back, a lot of it is dubious, and I'll have to look back. But yeah, I do recall this story, and I didn't see anything about it that seemed like fake, and sadly, it's within the realm of possibility. Don't know the context for which you're bringing this up. Okay, moving on. We're going to go through my notes. Oh, yeah, let me bring this up. Now, that says miswits, not midwits. Miswits. So, Wits It Gets It has been the subject of one of my blog posts recently, and it's simply this. This is a conundrum. This is a problem. This is an interesting problem. Because Wits It Gets It uses his knowledge of logical fallacies to win globe debates. He'll call out loaded questions, moving goalposts, faulty causality. He'll call out every logical fallacy, formal and informal, that is used by those trying to promote the globe side of the equation. And yet, I realized he cannot possibly ignore these then when it comes to other issues. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be logically consistent for Wits It Gets It to use the very logical fallacies that he's very well apprised of. And a lot of people just don't know about these. A lot of people don't know that when you look at a plane and say, what are they spraying? That you're actually employing a few logical fallacies, even in that simple question. You know, you could just outright, it's a loaded question, assuming a spray. Second, it's an appeal to ignorance, asking a question as though the answer isn't already known, as though nobody's thought of asking before, as though there's not a body of literature supporting the evidence that these things have a very specific cause. And then you could say it's an appeal to motive, suggesting there's a conspiracy to do something with airplane exhaust. So it's a very heavily loaded question. It's not honest. It's not coming from an honest and informed place. And it is, in fact, an appeal to ignorance. That's just one example. Others will say, well, I saw sprays and then it rained. Okay, well, that's faulty causality. Now, my point of it is, Wits It Gets It is too well aware of the logical fallacies required to claim a belief in chemtrails to actually use them. So my contention is that he will not be able to make an affirmative statement. He won't be able to say, yeah, I believe in chemtrails. He won't be able to. He wouldn't be able to supply a reason without majorly contradicting himself. So for the last 4 days, I've been tweeting him. And to date, he has yet to respond to my question. This is 4 days in a row, and we've had these discussions, and they're kind of blowing up in his chat here. I have half a dozen people defending him, but he's not showing up to converse. It's other people, and they're using all kinds of sophistry to try to get me to agree that these things are real, but they don't want to say for sure what they are. So again, my prediction is he is not going to be able to make a statement on this. And if he does, let's say he says, I know these are real because of, well, he's going to give a bad answer because there are no correct answers. He's going to have to use one of these fallacies. There's like 9 of them I've identified. Or he's going to say, I don't believe in chemtrails. And if he says that, he's going to run afoul of his subscribers because he caters to flat earthers. And flat earthers who are believers in the flat earth, not shape agnostics, but flat earthers all believe in chemtrails. There's like a 1-to-1, and they get mad if you don't. And again, it's just the typical hypocrisy. They don't believe enough to wear masks. But I'm just saying, Witzik gets it, is too well versed in this, and he's not going to answer. So let me give you an example of how these chemtrail proponents defend him. Flat Earth Friend comes in and he says, well, it depends on how you define chemtrails. If you stick to rigid barium and aluminum, maybe, maybe not. I would broaden this to weather control and particle activation via HAARP. So my response was, so we go from chemtrails to now changing definitions and words. So it depends on what my definition is. And he says, well, definition is everything. These could have different meanings. But there's definitely something creating clouds that form exhaust and then rain follows heavily. Now here we go. Right there. Faulty causality. So now he's asserting that there is definitely something creating clouds and these clouds create rain. Now that's not how cloud seeding works at all. But his point is that there's definitely something going on. Well, the fact of it is, you will see condensation trails correlated with rain, but they don't cause the rain. Their presence is an indication that the weather is ripe for rain. It was going to rain anyway. And the contrails, in fact, tell you of the likelihood of rain in many instances. So, in other words, faulty causality. Because A precedes B doesn't mean that A causes B. The same trick still manages to fool Crow 77777, who believes that chemtrails can be cleared away by boiling vinegar. Well, yeah, you can boil anything in your front yard, and the clouds will disappear. Just to attribute it to your actions, again, is faulty causality. Oh, because I did this, therefore they disappeared. No, it had nothing to do with it. So these are tricks. These are sleight of mind tricks. But my point here was that you cannot even advance chemtrail belief without tapping into one of these logical fallacies. In his case, faulty causality. Why is that? Now, again, I continued back and forth. Sam Fink said, what logical fallacies are required to make the claim that chemtrails are real? And I said, you begin. I don't believe in them. He said, you can't define it. You don't even know what you think isn't true. I don't even know what I think isn't true. Like, this is me trying to get an answer from somebody, and it turns into these word salads, which is exactly what it becomes, a word salad. Here's Sam Fink, he continues, if chemtrails, aka stratospheric aerosol injections, don't exist, then why are states banning them? So finally I got an answer, aka stratospheric aerosol injections. So now Sam Fink is saying that what you see coming out of airplanes are stratospheric aerosol injections. Although they form, I believe, much lower, because condensation trails start at 12,000 feet, I believe, right? Stratosphere is like what? Let me get these altitudes, but I mean, they're at the lower stratosphere at best. So that may not perfectly align. But anyway, Sam Fink has defined these trails as stratospheric aerosol injections. And I've heard that phrase many times, but nobody's actually told me what the injector looks like. Like, what is it injecting this stuff? And that's a whole other issue we'll get into, likely. But here's what Flat Earth Friend said. How can you not believe in something you can't accurately describe? Do you lack a belief in other things you cannot define? So this isn't a philosophical conversation about the nature of reality. No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe in chemtrails? Because I don't think they exist. And he said, how can you not believe in something you cannot describe? Do you understand how convoluted this is? The conversation went on for 5 hours. And I couldn't get any of them to admit that they believe in chemtrails. So I walked away from this just realizing that chemtrail proponents are just as full of it as climate change proponents. You're on Team Greta, Team Al Gore. I was thinking about Al Gore today. Does anybody remember the story about him being compared to a crazed sex poodle? which is crazy in itself. I mean, I don't even know what a sex poodle is. And Al Gore, I wouldn't compare him to a poodle of all breeds. But there is a story. This is one of the things that caused me to first pay attention to the news, I think. Al Gore was getting a massage at a hotel, and apparently he got the wrong idea. He's at some upscale hotel in 2006, and he, quote, behaved like a crazed sex poodle with the masseuse, and she was chased out of the hotel room. Anyway, I think this is why they had to bring out Greta Thunberg. They needed somebody a little more, I don't know, palatable. Al Gore, bloated, climate hypocrite, crazed sex poodle. We all had enough of that. And Greta gets arrested like every few days. Did everyone see that she got arrested again? I can't even tell if it's AI. Is it even happening? Greta Thunberg arrested at Hague climate protest. Police detained her. She was detained twice. See, this is theater. She goes, she gets arrested, she comes out, she gets arrested again. How many different pictures of her can you find where she's being arrested? And it's always a different pair of cops. But anyway, nothing new here. 11 hours ago, why was she arrested? Climate activist appears in court over London protest. You'll never find a chemtrail proponent getting arrested for their belief. Never. It's like, why are they so cowardly? You have climate activists ready to do an insurrection, and you can't even get chemtrail activists to admit that they believe in chemtrails. They want to get into the weeds. Okay, Mike Kim said, do you believe in space or orbit? My answer was no. I'm speaking from the perspective of mainstream media's presentation. It is my contention that the space agencies are doing a simulation. They broadcast part of a simulation last week by mistake. As I talked about earlier, they accidentally broadcast a sim. But that's all they do. Space travel in orbit, space travel does not exist, as far as I know. He asks me, are the astronauts faked? I said, I believe space travel is all simulation, always has been. The space station is no more than a movie and reality TV show projected onto the collective psyche. It is an attainable ideal which has been realized through the miracle of movie magic, but the public thinks it's science. He says, well, where are the two astronauts right now, if not on the ISS? My answer? Clandestine production studios, veiled behind security clearances. There's a simple answer to all of it. Where do crisis actors go? Plastic surgeon? Get another gig? In the case of some of these actors, we've seen they get multiple gigs, but it's not a mystery. Use your Occam's razor. What's more likely? They're doing magic in space, or they're faking it on the ground. Well, when you look at the evidence, you can tell that they're faking it, so it's kind of hard to make the argument they're in space. And they could prove it, but they can't. They could. It'd be so easy to do so. But there are certain things they just can't do that would automatically prove it to be real. And I talk about this all the time. Like, this is just another instance of me calling it out, and no one can meet the evidence. No one can bring it. So I'm like, look, if you believe in the ISS and you want to do your due diligence, and you're going to shift the burden of proof to people like me and tell me I just need to use the app and go see it, then do it. I've been told that by dozens of people, and nobody has made any effort to find the space station. No one has recorded it on video because it's unrecordable. All of the transits you see are done by NASA operatives and agents or dishonest liars who are likely federal informants or in some way compromised, and they can only do it by using solar filters or at night. So you get this ISS transit that looks uniform across all these different uploaders, but in every instance, it is the case that there are no eyewitnesses. There cannot be an eyewitness if you have to use a solar filter. Why can't you just record it at sundown over your shoulder? Just record the light in the sky that you all pretend to see. But none of them can. What do we need to do? Offer money? Offer money for one of them to make a little bit of an effort? Just make a tiny effort. But if you can't make that effort, you have no business saying the space station exists. Oh, Mango says, I'm near Los Lunas. Okay, now I understand. Now I understand. Okay, in fact, let's continue. I'm going to be likely driving by there pretty soon. Side note. All right, let's go ahead and get back to the notes here. There's a couple of things I want to follow up on. Howard Boyd says, Shalom, Timmy Bro, Amen. Thank you for joining. Elephant Tusk says, anyone watched Olympus Has Fallen? Have not yet. Travis Cloud says, chemtrails don't work on globe models. Yeah, well, chemtrails are flat. Contrails are flat. Stratospheric aerosol injections are flat. Whatever it is you think you see, it's flat. Clouds are flat. I mean, look, there's something else to consider too. This is a problem. It's not my problem, but there's this tendency among chemtrail proponents who don't want to let it go to move into geoengineering. Do you not believe in geoengineering? Which is a misdirection, another dishonest move. So these dishonest chemtrail proponents will point at geoengineering. What they don't know, because they don't research, is that geoengineering means climate change remediation. And the whole premise of geoengineering is that they need to reverse climate change. So when you're saying geoengineering is causing climate change, you're agreeing that the climate has changed. Your only point of disagreement with the climate change group is they blame the private sector, you blame secret government. You see how this works? It's a bifurcated psyop. Anybody falling for it right now is just a propaganda mule. Yeah, let me go ahead and answer phones. We have a few people on hold here. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Tim, how do I sound? I'm in my car.
You sound like you're in a car, loud and clear though, like a sound booth. It's good. It's clear.
Loud and clear. I'm wanted to call you about the chemtrails
Sure, I'm all ears because this debate is
and
happening this summer.
all right. Well, you're mocking what's it? Well, I said I think last time I called you or a couple times ago, uh, pushing the goalpost. Well, do you agree that them rolling coal in the atmosphere is pollution?
Not really. I mean,
So
it's. I mean, when you say
they are
pollution,
they are polluting the atmosphere. Oh, go ahead.
but when we say they're polluting, the term, what are we really saying? Permanent environmental damage? I mean, they say breathing is pollution these days. Exhaling is pollution. So I would say it's not something that has any long-term deleterious effects on the climate. Maybe it's unsavory, but no, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, unsavory, untasty. It's disgusting to look up and just to see a plane roll coal in the atmosphere or way up there and just leave exhaust everywhere. So I mean, I might sound like Greta Thunberg, but it's disgusting to see it. So I'm all for uh, having engines redesigned to stop uh, polluting the atmosphere.
Well, I think one thing you might be missing is that I believe the engines today, and you can look this up, are cleaner than before. And that is one of the reasons for more pronounced contrails. It's the efficiency has this disproportionate effect. And all you're seeing isn't exhaust, you're seeing the particulates from the exhaust creating the nuclei around which water condenses then freezes. So you're literally looking at ice in the sky. You're looking at ice, long trails of ice. And compared to the amount of actual
Yeah,
pollution or particulates, no, it's minuscule.
it's it's unnatural, but you say it's minuscule. But when, like, say you're over a major city, I mean, you're in New Mexico, so you don't really see it. But major city, I'm in Dallas, so I see hundreds of planes flying overhead, and I rarely see a clear blue sky.
That's anecdotal. I'd have to look at photographers in your area and see what people are getting. That's purely anecdotal. I have some people say that the sun is white and the sky is white and milky and it used to be
All right.
blue. I see the
Well,
blue sky.
anecdotal.
I see the blue sky whenever I go out, and other people tell me it doesn't exist anymore.
well, I drive to Kansas, so like when I get up into Oklahoma and then into Kansas, I see the beautiful blue sky. The sun's still white or not yellow like a comic book, but uh, it's definitely it's rolling coal in the atmosphere. I've talked to you about this earlier. It's they're rolling coal. They're not shooting out boron and aluminum
Wait,
particles.
wait, you're a truck
They're just
driver. You do realize. You do
polluting the
realize. Okay,
atmosphere.
this is interesting here. Okay, the left wing climate change will blame
Yep.
you for climate change. And you on the right wing will blame secret government programs, aka airplanes, but done in secret. You see, but you both agree that there's a problem with the atmosphere, right?
No, I'm accusing all airplanes. Like I'm not saying they're secret. Well, okay. I guess the chemtrail believers think there's like super secret military planes flying around dropping aluminum and boron in like every chemtrail that you see. I know that they're condensation trails, but I'm saying that these condensation trails are polluting the atmosphere.
Those are cirrus clouds, though. These are anthropogenic cirrus clouds, and cirrus clouds aren't pollution. These are
Yeah,
just literally
unnatural.
no. They're when we say unnatural, what we mean is that they're created by man's machines going through the atmosphere. But like
Okay.
a wake on a river. Do you know what a wake is behind a boat? You know, it kind of lurks for a minute. Nothing's being dumped, but it's you wouldn't call those natural. I mean, we did it. You know, we do these things, but the word unnatural has these negative connotations, like
Uh,
chemical. Well,
you might get a
water's a
lunar.
chemical.
Might
Water's a
you might get a
chemical.
lunar wave. You might get a lunar wave from one of those.
Well, look, I guess my
I said
main
you might get a lunar. I said you might get a lunar wave from one of those.
yeah don't yeah Crow 777 doesn't know about those. Someone needs to let him know. You know, he's been wondering what causes the lunar
All right.
wave.
What?
It's
Okay.
wingtip vortices.
So I mean, if you look into it, in the 1990s, trucks, or maybe early 2000s, trucks had to uh, get better engines to stop polluting the atmosphere. So what we need to do is stop polluting the atmosphere high up in the sky and stop making these well, it's exhaust trails, really.
So wait a minute here, though. Are you making the point here that you're not a chemtrail believer, but you are concerned about pollution from airplanes?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Because according to the political left and the climate change believers, emissions from aviation are a significant contributor to climate change, and they burn fossil fuels that cause global warming. And the vapor trails, according to them, also contribute to global warming. So you're kind of environmentalist at this point. Your views are actually more in line with conventional environmentalism, more than right-wing chemtrail alarmism. But you both agree that there's a problem.
Yeah, I'm like bring back the propellers. Like at this point, I'm like bring back the propellers.
Now, do you believe in anthropogenic
Like
climate
this
change?
jet engine.
Like, is the climate getting worse because of airplanes?
I'm not hanging up. I'm keeping my radio on. Is I don't. Well, I would answer. I don't. You said a big word.
I said,
I don't
okay,
know
like
that big
the
word.
climate, has the climate become more chaotic and has the weather become worse because of airplanes, in your opinion?
Uh, no, it's just a natural cycle.
So
But I'm saying,
you don't
well,
believe in chemtrails causing climate change, but you do believe that jet emissions are n not causing climate. So what is the problem here? What is your actual problem here? If the
all right.
climate's not
Well,
changing, what's your issue?
I don't know. I can't put a healthometer on corn crops, but I feel like the fields of vegetables that are growing are getting less oxygen. Like maybe even every city is getting less oxygen. Uh, it's just I feel like the natural sunlight is being blocked. I think they're actually trying to do it, and they
Okay,
know that they're doing it, and so they keep flying the planes and polluting uh, the stratosphere.
So you believe that there's pollution that's blocking the sun and it's affecting the crops.
Yeah, they're rolling coal in the stratosphere
So the
on
airplanes,
purpose,
the airplanes are
and they're
destroying the
yeah,
crops with whatever they're spraying in the in the atmosphere. I'm just trying to get this clear. That's what you're asserting here.
yeah. They need more chemicals to make the crops grow.
See, what I
So
find fascinating
Monsanto
is like
is adding.
you're not spouting conventional environmentalism, but you seem to have like you seem like you have the same basic premise, but then your actual contention here is more what chemtrail theorists believe. Like they're killing the sun, they're killing the crops, but the climate change people say it's from pollution, not from chemtrails. You're not saying it's CO2. So you're kind of like bipartisan in your skyphobia. But my issue here is that both left and right, climate change and chemtrail, neither have evidence. It's all just paranoid speculation, doom and gloom. Like you don't have any evidence that the sun's being blocked. You just have some anecdotal feelings. You have feelings.
Uh, all right, we'll talk about the surface level. Have you ever seen a semi roll coal or a truck roll coal?
I've seen, yeah, we have. I have many
And it takes.
examples, and it lurks in the crossroads, in the streets, at the intersections, like a black cloud, like a wraith. And yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this many
Yeah,
times.
you smell it. Do you feel like that's unhealthy?
No, no. To me, it's like not at all. And then if you look at
It's
the
not unhealthy.
cost versus benefit, living in a city, yeah, you get pollution, you get crime, but you also get convenience. You get sanitation, you get running
I
water,
I feel
electricity.
like you're lying. I feel like you're lying. So you would breathe exhaust fumes every day if you could. Like if the trucks rolled next to your living area every day and they were just rolling coal every day next to your house and their exhaust fumes are blowing into your house every day, you'd be happy with that? You'd be like,
No,
oh, this
actually,
is natural.
here we report
This is,
vehicles. We have a number to report vehicles that are so they can get their emissions. Like I could report a truck that rolls coal and they'll get their emissions tested. Like there are certain environmental standards. Just because I'm not a hardcore Greta doesn't mean that I want to take a bath in water where toxic waste has been dumped. Just because I don't believe in recycling doesn't mean I'm a climate change accelerationist. There's this tendency to say, if you don't agree with my side, you are therefore the epitome of the opposite. And it's like, no, I'm not taking a side here. I don't believe in climate change. I don't believe in chemtrail caused climate change. And I don't really think that environmentalism is my issue. I don't really have any grievances about it. I think I think it's a self-correcting problem. Things are gradually getting better, and it's mostly hype. So like, I don't waste any of my bandwidth thinking about jet exhaust, especially when I love the way it looks, because to me it's just cirrus clouds. I look at that as a sign of progress. Look, we fly now, and we have these streaks of ice across the sky. That's progress
I
to
know,
me.
like, please, yeah, please chill the summer because it's hot as shit outside, and please cool it down.
They can't. They can't. That's the thing. They can't. Like that's the thing.
And then,
The whole claim is that they're changing the weather. Whether you're a chemtrail boofer or a climate Greta, neither of you can prove that the climate has changed because of man. Neither of you can. You have no evidence.
what are you talking about? Like, when the planes roll coal in the atmosphere, up in the stratosphere, or whatever the layer's called, where they fly, they're spreading clouds, unnatural clouds.
No, these are
Do you know how
okay.
clouds are formed?
I do, and these are cirrus clouds, and whether or not they spread really depends on the prevailing weather conditions at the time and the
Yeah.
air currents. But they may just dissipate. It depends. On some days here, I see the trails behind the planes dissipating seconds after. Other times they linger. It depends on the altitude, depends on temperature, depends on pressure. But no, I don't find those problematic any more than I find it problematic that somebody on a bicycle coming by me is breathing. Like, no, I don't care that he's breathing CO2. It doesn't bother me. Like, the world is huge, and I don't think that a motorcycle kicking up dust is somehow an environmental catastrophe. I don't think rolling coal is an environmental catastrophe. Like, no, I think this sounds like alarmism, climate alarmism. And it's so big
Okay.
right now, it's so huge right now.
If you
And
don't think if you don't think rolling coal is a big environmental problem, why did the government make all these laws to enforce semi trucks to obey emissions?
Oh, look, I don't think that trash is a big deal. People throw it in the trash can and it gets picked up. Doesn't mean I think we should have trash everywhere. I'm not a rolling coal advocate.
That's a physical object. I'm
No,
talking about atmosphere.
look, I think I don't. I'm not an environmentalist. So you tell me if there's an environmental catastrophe. I don't see it.
I'm just saying these states are pushing to cancel or stop chemtrails, and I think
Oh, those, no,
these
no,
plans
those states are not.
are going to
There,
change.
there are certain politicians who are pandering to a bunch of ignorant conspiracy theorists to put bogus stuff through. It's like, oh, we could put a bill in there to protect the habitat of gnomes and Sasquatch. Does that mean that gnomes and Sasquatch exist? No. They're putting in some bill on a misunderstanding of what geoengineering means, on an ignorant take on condensation trails, and they're being pandered to. In no way have their claims ever been given any credence whatsoever. The only people who think so are people who are repeating headlines. Oh, look, we must have made some progress because now they're trying to ban chemtrails. No, they're not. And the whole thing is just a farce. It's a farce, trust me.
Well, a condensation trail has exhaust fumes in it, and it is basically a chemtrail.
No, that's not even true. Not if you break it down like when we say chemical, water's a chemical. You could drink condensation trails safely. Um, hey, there's a commenter here. I want to just point this out. I want to see if you can identify it. Jake M says, "So they're just spraying for what reason?" Question mark. Can you identify the three logical fallacies?
I'm not saying they're spraying. I'm
No, no,
saying the
Jake is.
exhaust
Jake
have to
M is.
be.
Jake M is saying, so they're just spraying for what reason? There are three logical fallacies in that. One, that there is a spray, because hot exhaust condensing is not a spray. Two, he asks the question as though there isn't an answer. So it's an appeal to argument from ignorance. And three, it's kind of a shifting of the burden of proof, asking me to answer his question. And then if I tell him the truth, condensation trails, he won't believe me. So that's why I say the whole chemtrail thing is just dishonest sophistry. And I think it's funny that people engage in it, but you guys don't wear masks, so I don't take your belief all that seriously.
Well, do you want to engage? Do you want to answer that guy?
Well, the answer is, what do you mean they're spraying? Prove they're spraying something. You're making a false allegation. It'd be like walking into a home and you smell somebody
I
cooking something
I
and you say, "What are you
I
burning?"
completely agree. I completely agree. They're not spraying anything. They're just polluting the atmosphere with their high heat exhaust from their jet engines.
Now, what is your understanding of it? Like, is it worse than it was 20 years ago, or are engines running cleaner?
Oh, well, there's no propeller, so like 1960s earlier or 1990s, or like what's earlier?
What I mean is, are modern jet engines cleaner and more efficient than before? I mean, are they not using, I don't know, some kind of, for example, afterburners. When you have like crematoriums, the reason why you don't see black smoke when they're burning bodies is they have afterburners. They have different ways that we have eventually managed to clean things up. But what I'm saying is, are modern jets cleaner and more efficient than before? Or are they getting worse, in your opinion?
I got distracted. People are walking all around me.
Well,
Can you repeat the
yeah, what I'm
question?
asking is this, because if you're very concerned about jet pollution, is your understanding of it that it's getting worse and nobody is solving the problem, or is it getting better?
I feel like they're acknowledging the problem slowly with these states banning chemtrails, and they are going to find a new way of propelling planes.
Well, the answer I found here is just an example. There's a race right now for ultra efficient clean jet engines, and billions of dollars have been put into it, and jet engines today are, in fact, cleaner and more efficient than before. So I'm just wondering, what is your cause for concern exactly here? Is it environmental? Is it catastrophe from climate change? Like, what is your main concern? Are they going to block the sun, kill the crops? Do you really believe that's happening?
Uh, well, yeah, well, not killing the crops, but they're messing with the atmosphere and the rain.
Now, how long have you been a chemtrail truther? Well, not chemtrail. How long
Like,
have you been
well, like
a
the
jet
the
exhaust
dew
truther?
point. They're messing with the dew point. So most clouds are the atmosphere at night kind of falls because it gets cooler,
Do you consider
and
yourself to be
then
an
in the
activist? Are you
daytime
an
that's when the
environmental
sun.
are you an activist in this issue? Like, do you talk about jet exhaust every day? Because you're not a chemtrail truther, you're not an environmentalist, but you're very concerned
No,
about jets and
I
contrails.
think most people that think there's chemtrails are misled.
But
They
you, but
are
no, wait, hold on.
basically
I'm asking about you
exhaust.
though. I'm asking about you. You don't
They're
believe in
exhaust trails,
you
not
don't be,
condensation.
you don't believe in chemtrails. You don't believe in
Exhaust.
climate change, but you're concerned about jet exhaust killing crops and blocking the sun. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, exhaust trails. Yeah, exhaust trails.
Now, why is this a concern of yours? Or how long has this been a concern of yours? And is it like, is it new, or is this something you've had in your mind for some years?
Because they screws about the reverse enemy. Because uh,
It's because you're
they're
watching the
they're
chemtrails instead of
changing
driving.
the complete environment. No, they're changing the environment. They're changing the whole natural condensation dew points. But also logging is also doing that too. So there's multiple factors that are doing the same thing. It's
Okay.
not just flying planes.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at here. I'm trying to figure out what is your concern here because I'm debating chemtrail theorists. You're more of an environmentalist.
I'm I'm saying I'm saying man is affecting the environment.
Yeah, you're an environmentalist then. The climate change premise is anthropogenic climate
Environment
change.
believer.
Yeah, you're a believer in that. That's cool.
Yes, I believe man. Environmentalist. I mean, I believe man can affect the environment due to uh, over overexertion.
Okay, well, that's your belief, and there's a lot of people who believe that. It's actually very mainstream. It's very scientific of you. So good for you. You're a climate change believer and not a chemtrail believer. So it's kind of interesting because you're kind of right wing, but you still adopt the leftist perspective on it. Although what's different is the leftists blame private sector. They would blame truckers like you, but you're blaming airplanes. This is why it's so fascinating to me is that leftists blame truckers, people on the right blame airplanes as a way of blaming the government because you can't blame the private sector because you're on the right. I'm just trying to point out the box that you're in and the perspectives that you're espousing. And you're kind of interesting in that even though you're in the right wing box, you're kind of taking a leftist stance on it, although it's kind of convoluted.
I mean, are you going to do a live stream and follow the debate tomorrow?
Oh, yes, definitely. The debate between Trump and Biden. The expectations for Trump are very low. Everybody's talking about how Biden's going to be jacked up, and there's not going to be an audience for Trump to bounce off of, so he's not going to get any laughs. So I think it's going to be awkward.
Uh, yeah, it's going to be weird. But hey, I was looking at your Minds account, and I was trying to remember the Minds account name that I made a couple years ago. And if you can remember it, because I specifically wrote out my uh, prophecy that Elon is going to have to launch a capsule and save the astronauts in the ISS and bring them home before it collapses. It was either in 2022 or 2021, but I wrote a big blog, I think like 3 paragraphs, about how I thought something's going to go wrong, and SpaceX is going to need to send up a Dragon capsule or whatever they call it to the
I'll look for it.
ISS.
I'll look
Retrieve.
for it. I'll look for it. And one more thing. In the meantime, since you're open to believing in skyphobia, are you worried at all about space junk or stuff in the sky? Is that something that might concern you?
I'm interested in paying for you to file for the lawsuits. Like I will pay the court fees and the filing fees if you include me in your filings or
Yeah, look,
to
okay.
sue for
Let,
mental anguish.
let's
Mental anguish. I will
mental
sue for
anguish.
mental anguish.
Let's sue them for mental anguish. We'll sue them because they
I
convinced us that our lives are threatened and now we sleep with helmets on. I would do it.
I'll do it too. I'll pay for it.
Okay, I'll tell you what. First steps first.
Whatever the fee is, I'll send it to you.
I'll go to the city council and I'll
Sure.
raise the question and I'll say, I'm trying to seek anyone who wants to engage in a class action lawsuit against NASA for the mental anguish of space junk.
No, I think that's where I think not doing a class action. I think we got to do it privately. Just me and you. Just a private settlement,
Hmm.
and then sign an NDA.
Okay, well, I'd be interested.
Like we
I'm
figured
interested.
it out, and then sign an NDA.
I'm also interested in faking
Because
space junk. If anybody wants in on this, contact me. If you want to fake space junk and troll the news, I have a plan, and they have no defense against it, and nobody else is going to do it. So we can talk about it openly, and they're still going to believe it because they're so dumb. So if anyone wants to participate in faking space junk, I have a plan. Just email me at infiniteplainsociety@gmail.com.
uh,
And once I have 5 or 6 people on board,
and
we're going to do it.
if you drive through Idaho, there is the watermelon patch of petrified wood or petrified watermelons. I think they honestly call them petrified watermelons. You can Google it. It's either in Idaho or Wyoming or Oregon. It might be Oregon actually, but there's a petrified watermelon patch, and they are basically bowling balls of petrified. They call them watermelons, petrified watermelons,
Right,
and it's well known.
basically moon rocks. You could pass those off as moon rocks. I consider that too.
Yeah, moon rock. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
look,
saying. They're
punch a hole in your roof, drop one of those on your bed, and then say a moon rock fell off the moon on a full moon and it fell through my roof. Prove me wrong. I mean, that the burden of proof is on them to prove
yeah.
it wrong.
You can even cut it halfway through and then just throw it like a Donkey Kong into your roof, and then hopefully it goes through, and then be like, boom, it fell from the sky.
Well, I'm ready to fake the space junk. I'm ready to do this PR stunt, which will get everybody looking, and I don't know. We'll see where it goes from there. But I plan on auctioning the thing off, and
I'm
then
ready. I'm ready to pay for it. I'm ready to pay for uh, the P what is it, POI or whatever, of school shootings. Let's get these photos, these crime scene photos. Uh, Investigation Act or whatever, public investigate. I don't know what it's called.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Well, I think the place to start then would be just to do a filing. You want to sue NASA first? If you want to sue NASA, just look up the filing fee,
Well,
and
well
I will make it happen. I think it's probably like $500.
let's let's sue Shady Cork and say that's mental anguish, and say let's release the crime scene photos.
Well, I would. There's other people who are
Well,
really
not even
heavily.
that one.
I mean,
That's
look.
kind of a big one.
Yeah,
That's kind of a big
I'm
one.
not even interested these days in psyops of 10 years ago. What we're doing now is so far advanced ahead of that. Alex Jones dropped the ball on that on behalf of truthers anyway, and we're so far past that. Like, I'm just trying to get rid of. Honestly, I'm trying to get rid of believers, like believers. The IPS, the auto hoax, planet killing asteroid that's coming, it's got to be pure. We're going into quarantine. If you believe in climate change or chemtrails, we don't have room for you. And the reason why I talk about this is we need to know why you believe what you believe. And if it's simply a desire to believe, that's fine, but there's not going to be a place for it at the cutting edge at a certain point. So we're working on filtering out these things. And people who haven't already figured out about fake shootings aren't even welcome anyway. There's not enough time to figure it out. But there are plenty of people who already have, and those are the only people I'm interested in. If you're in 2024, if you still
Well,
believe in outer
I
space, I'm sorry, but
hmm
like, good luck.
so the I hate the final experiment. So I kind of feel like just letting any flat Earth topic die until the final experiment, until December. Just whatever
December.
happens until
Uh,
December, then we can continue.
I got a trip here
Then you
scheduled.
can continue the conversation.
I found a company that will do a cruise down to Antarctica November the 6th for a full week for 10K. And I'm pretty sure I could raise that. And what I'm thinking is this: why don't we get some IPS people to go before anybody else goes? And we will steer the news narrative away from what they're going to say. Because the final experiment isn't the final experiment, because even if you can prove we're on a ball, you still cannot explain away decades and decades of fake
Building
space travel.
7.
Well,
Yeah, Building 7. Yeah.
the media
All the
fakery.
stuff.
Media fakery is a whole
All
other issue.
Yeah, once you prove it's a ball, then the moon landing's real. Building 7 fell on its own. Every conspiracy is confirmed.
Yeah, it's an echo chamber. And what we're doing here is far beyond focusing on exposing one issue to the public. The public is they're mind numbed. It doesn't matter what they think. I don't need to go get a Freedom of Information Act and get photos of something that doesn't exist. You can't prove a negative anyway. All I need to do is I need to get with the
Oh
people.
yeah.
I'm only interested in those who've already figured it out. Anybody who's still clinging to mainstream narratives can stay there. Chemtrailers, Menduzold, uh, Jew hunters, uh, Trump worshippers, QAnons, like, yeah, you can all stay in your sanitarium, please.
Well, the Q people are mainly just religious thumpers, Bible thumpers, but they have the most money to offer for investigations or donate. They have the most money to donate.
Their expendable income is going into the JFK Jr. fan club. They're all worthless. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, there are people who say we should organize and resist. Like, no, it's worthless. This is an insane asylum. There's no point in following or gathering or ganging up with people who still believe in moon landings. If you can't deconstruct that, you're not at the level we need. Like, I'm not a truther. I'm not trying to, quote, wake people up. I'm not on a religious crusade. I am specifically and only interested in getting all the skeptics into a parallel media body. That's it. Non skeptics can stay where they're at. I'm not interested. I'm not here to deprogram anybody. I'm here for the deprogrammed, those who've already done it, because you can only do it from yourself. I can't deprogram you. You can deprogram yourself. If you choose to believe that there are stratospheric aerosol injections killing all the crops, I can't disabuse you of that. That's your choice. But my point being, there's more believers than knowers.
Well,
So if we get rid of all categories of believers, we can quarantine. If we let one group in, it will overwhelm us. So I'm putting up a hard line here. No Kim boofers allowed off world stage.
you're making me think of chemtrails.
They don't exist. They don't
Kind of the
exist. They're,
biggest.
they're in your mind. They don't exist. That's the thing. This is a mind war. And so you've been subtly convinced that there is this physical war commensurate with a mind war, and there isn't. And what you have is really just fear and paranoia, doubt, confusion, the fog of Psywar. And I have clarity. I am the least confused person you'll ever talk to.
Okay, so do you agree that they're exhaust trails?
No, not in the way you define them. No.
So you would fly up there in a hot air balloon and just huff up an exhaust trail or
No, not accepting
a
your premise
condensation trail?
to reject your premise doesn't mean that I automatically adopt the extreme version of what you're against. No, not at all. I'm saying that I
All right,
reject your
I'll
premise.
admit I've said it before. I'm pushing the goalpost, and you calling out Witsit gets it. He will push the goalpost to what I'm saying because
Witsit
he has.
gets it, will never
There's no
answer.
way he would.
He can't answer. He cannot answer. Witsit gets it,
What are you
knows too
talking about?
much. He cannot say, he cannot answer
You want
whether.
me to message him?
Yeah,
I'll
message him.
message him.
Okay, Witsit gets it, cannot
All right.
publicly proclaim that he believes in chemtrails. He can't.
No, he will say there is uh, weather atmosphere injections, but not all these. He will say there's condensation trails and the
He
possibility
won't be able to
there's
answer. Like I said, he won't be able to answer yes or no. He'll have to ramble, misdirect, and word salad. He will not be able to say yes, I believe in chemtrails. He won't.
word salad.
Yeah,
You think he's saying word salad?
no, what you just said here. Well, there's some condensation, some chemtrails, weather manipulation, HARP, stratospheric, aerosol, crisscrossing lines. No, chemtrails. Do you believe in them? Yes or no?
Well, yeah, there's two. There's two things. There's two things. There is military injections of clouds, so that's a yes. So
Wait,
is
okay,
there
that's new. That's new.
chemtrail?
Where are these military jets that every truther has claimed to have seen? You don't have any evidence for that. We both know this. You don't have any evidence of quote military jets doing special sprays. All of you blame regular airplanes,
What?
and then when we call you on it, you say no, it was the secret ones that
No,
nobody sees.
no. Yeah, the ones that nobody sees are real, and then the ones that everyone sees in the sky is just exhaust trails.
This is gaslighting. The ones you see are fake. The ones that nobody sees are real. But the ones that nobody sees are the ones that create the real clouds that everybody sees, but nobody sees them formed because they're not on the tracking apps. Right, right. That's just gaslighting. It's like you got to jump through hoops to assert to believe in
It's
this stuff.
not gaslighting. So you don't think a plane hooked up with injectors and fluids can fly over a cloud and make it absorb all the chemicals in the plane and start raining?
Cloud seeding isn't that effective. In fact, it's expensive. You'd be better off dumping bottled water by the case from an airplane than doing cloud seeding because
Yes,
that's
that's what I'm saying. So has a cloud seeding ever happened?
cloud seeding is not chemtrails, apples and oranges. Again, misdirection. In order to promote,
Okay. You're
listen, in order to promote chemtrail belief, you are required to use misdirection and to change the subject. You have to talk about stratospheric aerosol injection and you have to also talk about cloud seeding. When we started talking about what planes are
exactly.
doing, and then you say it's not even planes, it's the secret planes. Nobody can talk about chemtrails without using multiple logical fallacies and word games. And Witsit Gets It knows this. That's why he's not going to talk about it. I guarantee you cannot get Witsit Gets It to commit to a belief in chemtrails.
That's what I'm saying. So do you think there's military practices to do chemtrails?
I'm not a paranoid conspiracy theorist that runs around with no evidence and makes bold claims. No, I have no reason. I'm not a believer. I'm a total agnostic. You provide evidence for your
So,
claims.
so the videos that they show, look, there's just spraying chemicals. So those are all fake.
Which videos? And look, that's not even good argumentation if you're not going to bring the video. And what you're saying is that there are secret planes, but you've seen the inside of these secret planes. Look, there is no honesty in chemtrail theory. Anyway, hey, appreciate the call. I have someone else trying to get through here. Maybe they can call right back. But
Oh, come on.
chemtrails
It's
don't exist. You know they don't
the other
exist.
thing.
Why can't you just
I know they don't. They're exhaust. I'm saying that the chemtrails that almost everyone thinks they're chemtrails are exhaust trails, and there's very few chemtrails that Witsit Gets It will say exist. So he will
Witsit Gets
say
It will not come out and say,
chemtrails
Witsit Gets
exist.
It. Okay, listen, let me wrap this up. Witsit Gets It knows that there is no
I know you're
no.
wrapping it up.
Witsit
I'm
Gets
just
It.
saying.
Witsit Gets It knows that you cannot make any claims about chemtrails without using logical fallacies. He knows the logical fallacies. Therefore, he won't do it because he'll contradict himself. You can get away with it. A lot of people can get away with it because they don't
You're
know.
you're diverting. You're diverting.
No, no, no.
You're
A
diverting.
lot of people don't.
The
Chemtrail
there is
theorists.
very few. There is very few chemtrails. But what everyone's calling chemtrails is just exhaust trails.
Okay, this
They're
is
just
again. Why
voluntarily in the
is it
atmosphere.
that every chemtrail believer has to muddy the waters with, oh no, only some trails are chemtrails, some aren't. Everybody gets it wrong. The ones that you see aren't the ones that are real. The ones that are real are the ones in the planes that you don't see, and the planes that you don't see
What do you?
are only causing exhaust. It
That's
sounds like
oh
word
man,
salad.
I'm not doing that. I'm an
You're
originalist.
using
All right.
word salad. You're using word salad to obfuscate the basic question. You can't even answer yes or no. If I asked you, sir, do chemtrails
All right.
exist? You cannot
So the Earth,
answer.
the globe,
You cannot answer yes or no. Do chemtrails exist? Answer yes or no.
the, the Earth's a globe.
No, hey, can you answer yes or no? Do chemtrails exist?
In
Oh, you
small,
can't answer.
small.
You can't answer. You can't answer yes or no. All right, look, I gotta get the
Yeah,
next caller.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
get the next caller. You can't answer yes or no, and that's because it is a dishonest proposition, and I've called it out effectively, and I've yet to meet a chemtrail proponent who can manage to answer a straight question. It's unbelievable. Elephant Tusk says, how does this guy not fall asleep at the wheel? Yeah, a lot of people are tired of this question, but I'm not. Because this is a truth or orthodoxy. This filters out believers from informed non believers. If you're a chemtrail proponent, you're a low info believer. I'm just exposing it. And the caller has admitted that he believes in a lot of stuff but doesn't have any evidence for it. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. I got another comment from Jake M. I wanted to read here. He said, I see it all the time. Some days there are none, some days there are some days it's like a checkerboard. They have flight paths. Anyone with eyes to see, they are combing the sky. It's silly. Yeah, there's a really good explanation for flight paths. It happens to be the same explanation for intersections. Why do we have intersections? Why do we have intersections? Is it because destinations connect and people drive to these same destinations, so we build roads and the roads happen to cross? That makes sense. Well, why do we have checkers in the sky? Maybe it's because the airlines all are in a conspiracy to provide landing spots for each other. So they fly from one airport to the other consistently. And if you look at the flight patterns, they're also going to organize it so they don't collide, meaning different altitudes, which means some lines will go crossing the others. But yes, you do see this checkerboard. Cope says he's not serious. He may not be serious, but my question is, why would you be so passionate about airplane exhaust enough to where you want to talk about it all night? And this is one of the things that I talk about anyway. Truthers, people who live in the MSM Plus box, are just like normies, except they're scared. And he can't say he's not scared. And I didn't want to bring it up, but if I said, are you scared? He would say, no, I'm brave. I'm courageous. I'm not scared at all. Well, no, you're claiming that there's a secret program to screw up the weather, kill the crops, block the sun, and poison you. You're terrified. It's like, oh, there's an axe murderer in my house, and I think he killed the pets. I think he might even have a blowtorch, but I'm not scared. Oh, no, he's going to kill you. Yeah, I know, but I'm not scared. No, you're scared. And if you say that you believe that there's a secret program to destroy the world and kill everybody and blot out the sun, you are scared. Whether you admit it or not, you're terrified. Otherwise, you wouldn't be calling to alarm an entire audience. So now there's 130 people here who are now aware that, oh, we thought it was just jet exhaust, but now we know it's the end of the world. It's the airplane induced apocalypse. This is worse than climate change. It just means that you're scared. And then my question is, if you're so scared, why aren't you wearing a mask? Like Jake M in the comments, he's a hardcore believer in chemtrails, but he doesn't wear a mask. Cope says chemtrail, yeah, yeah. The chem boofers should wear masks if they're going to call in. So if you call in and I don't hear you talking through a mask and you're pushing chemtrail belief, I'm just going to assume you're lying. All right now in chat we have 133 people. That is comprised of 47 on Twitter, 3 on DLive, 81 on YouTube, and about 3 dozen on the audio stream at Radio King. I'm going to open up another YouTube channel and we'll see if we can bring in some latent auto hoaxers, just some lurkers. And we're going to have a debate, by the way. We're going to do a debate publicly. Jake M says, stop it, dude. You're full of it, gaslighting. I'm not gaslighting you. If you tell me that, hey, there's dangerous chemicals in the air and you're not wearing a mask, I'm going to accuse you of bullshitting me. Sorry, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Unless you're going to say, I'm not afraid of the chemicals outside because I'm so brave. Oh, you're not worried about chemtrail lung? And that would be a thing, by the way. I don't hear any chemtrailers coughing. Like you don't have chemtrail lung. So if it's not a thing to be afraid of to wear a mask, then why is it a thing to talk about? Okay, moving on. Chemtrails don't exist, and you have to be a liar. You do. You actually have to lie to yourself to posit the existence. This is the final point on it, because I've reached a crescendo in my debates. I've recognized something here. In order to posit the existence of these, you have to willfully ignore evidence that counteracts that. And the way they do this is they distract you. So instead of addressing the elephant in the room, which is contrails, instead of addressing that, they say, stratosphere injections. Well, what does a stratosphere injector look like? They don't even know. They'll say geoengineering. Well, the geoengineering is a climate change remediation term, and it's purely hypothetical. Like literally nobody believes that geoengineering works. The environmentalists don't believe it works yet. They're trying, but it's not doing anything. It doesn't affect the climate. But the people who believe it does, ironically, are the chemtrail people. Anyway, we're over it, but this is an important point here. The point of it is chemtrail pushers are propaganda mules at best, fear pornographers at worst. So what are you? Are you pushing doom, gloom, fear, paranoia, intentionally or not? Either way, it's a huge waste of time. And it's no different than climate change. It's a climate change belief for the right wing. It means you're in a box. It means you're in their box. And I'm just not. And I think it's funny that there's so many people willing to get mad at me for not believing, for not sharing in their faith, and none of them are willing to do any kind of activism or protests. Like, I respect Greta. At a minimum, I guess I should say I have some respect for her. I respect her more than I respect your average chemtrail believer. Because your chemtrail believer is just a rumor monger with no solutions. And they don't even know what they're talking about, and they admit it. Their whole premise is, I don't know, I'm confused, what is this? Question mark, just asking questions. Look at me, I'm confused. Um, I don't find that compelling. But my point of it is, it's just a posture. Willful ignorance, argument from ignorance, not a truthy thing. And hopefully they can move past it. I don't think many of them will. And one more point, Witsit gets it. The reason I mention him is that he knows about logical fallacies. Therefore, he would be wittingly and knowingly lying to push belief in chemtrails. And since I called him out on it, he won't talk about it. It's just funny. It's funny to me because he's not going to talk about it. He's cornered. He's cornered because if he's honest, he's going to disappoint his subscribers. If he's dishonest, he's going to get called out. Jake M says, I don't know what they're spraying, but I see it every day. Okay, again, the dishonesty is this. You say, I don't know. Okay, well, you're saying I don't know as though that argument means it's not known. Well, you might be the only person on earth that doesn't know. Doesn't mean it's not known. You're asserting it to be a mystery. It's not a mystery. And using that, I don't know, what could it be, is an easy lead into, why don't you watch this video by Richie from Boston? That's how you funnel people into Trutherville. It's a recruitment tactic. I don't know. Maybe you could discover for yourself. Discovering for yourself is another marketing ploy. So what you're doing here is when you say, I don't know what they're spraying, you are recruiting for alt media. You're asserting there to be a mystery. You're appealing to the ignorance of people who don't know the truth. And then you're loading the question by saying, they are spraying something. I don't know what they're spraying. Okay, well, what is a spray? A spray is a substance inside of a container that is ejected, dispersed. Condensation trails are formed by hot air, and they don't always form. It depends on the climate. The fact that they don't always form means they don't always, quote, spray, meaning it's not a spray. It means that only at certain times, certain conditions, certain altitudes will the hot air result in condensation freezing into cirrus clouds. But the fact it doesn't happen all the time means that they're not spraying. So you're sort of indirectly lying when you're saying that they're spraying something. you're misrepresenting it. Loaded question. If you walk into a house and you smell that there's someone cooking dinner and you say, "What are they burning?" You're loading the question with the implication that you have a terrible chef in the house. Well, what if they're not burning anything? See, how you frame the question is everything. So when you say, "What are they spraying?" you're framing the question dishonestly. So Jake M says, "I don't know what they're spraying." You also assume that there's a they, which brings about an appeal to motive. The bad guys are so bad, obviously they're spraying something on us. I have some chem boofers say to me, "Oh, so you think that they just love us so much they wouldn't spray us with toxins?" No, I don't believe that. Common tactic. But my point of it is, Jake M can't even pro-offer an honest statement as a basic assertion. He can't say, "Delta Airlines is dumping poisons on the cities below." He can't make an affirmative. All he can say is, "I don't know. It's a question. I'm confused." Sorry, they don't exist. Nick Fingar says, "You're trolling Witsit to debate you." Brilliant. Witsit won't debate this. I'm telling you. He won't debate it because it's a lose-lose for him. He loses if he's honest because he'll lose subs. And if he's dishonest, he loses because I'll call him out and he'll know he's being dishonest because most of the other dishonest chem boofers don't know the logical fallacies packed into their every statement. Witsit gets it, knows. He knows about formal and informal logical fallacies. So what I put in my blog post was he cannot honestly claim to believe in them. He may dishonestly make the claim, but now that I've called him out on it 4 days in a row, no, he's not going to say anything. I guarantee Witsit gets it, and I'm going to call him out every single day. It'll be day 600. Witsit gets it, still not responding to my question, does he believe in chemtrails? It's a truth or orthodoxy. It's a sacred cow. And it's ironic because his Twitter account says, "The truth isn't always popular, and what is popular isn't always true." Which is silly. Like, it's pretty popularly known that the sky is blue. But anyway, he will not go against the popular trutherism that chemtrails are real. He will not go against the tide. It'd be great if you'd debate me, but he won't. Jake M says, "Explain why a drone can spray contrails." I don't care. Why would you deny that? What drone? What altitude? That would be the question. You know it's an altitude-based thing, right? That these are predictable. And one other thing you have to contend with, which you won't be able to, you cannot predict chemtrails. You can't. Nobody can. However, contrails are predictable. And there are charts going back to the 50s. And why do they have these? Because the Air Force wants to know when they will form, so they know not to fly those days, because it will give away their locations. So it's pretty well understood. Violet Penguin says, "You have zero evidence, Jake M. Can you even call in?" He's not going to call in because he has no evidence. He only has his conviction and his faith in chemtrails. It's like a religious cult. And they hate the non-believers. Jake M says, "I have seen the Air Force dumping." All you have are anecdotal observations and lies. And it's lies if you have to use logical fallacies. And it's ice. It's cirrus clouds. You could actually buy, there's actually bottled water companies that sell bottled chemtrails. It's pretty funny. Liquid chemtrails. You can actually order this stuff. And why? Well, because it's water, basically. Too funny. But here's the reason why you believe in it. You believe in it because this was a trutherism that got you into the group. It's a commonly agreed upon thing. And you've been professing it for so long that now you've entrenched yourself in it and your ego's attached to it. As Mark Twain wrote, "It is easier to fool a man than convince him he's been fooled." So even though you may have thought yourself out of the globe model, it's unlikely you'll pull yourself out of the chemtrail phobia. You'll believe in chemtrails because of the appeal to motive. And it's the only tangible evidence for a conspiracy that you have. And it gives you the illusion of being oppressed and you're fighting an oppressor. You're not going to be able to let it go. And if you debate with me, you're likely going to double down on it. A lot of the people on X who debate with me are digging themselves deeper and deeper into it, and they're not going to be able to back out. I just accepted it. They're going to be, chemtrails for life, and a lot of them are just dishonest liars. Like this guy I mentioned, Eric Fink or whatever. He said, "Well, then you're going to call these fake too," and he sends me these two videos. So I look it up. One video was a test where they were spraying the airplane wings to see how they deal with icy conditions, and the second clip was air sampling equipment. So he sends me a video of air sampling equipment and claims these are chemtrail nozzles. Why do they have to lie? He said, "I'm sure you're just going to say this is fake, but here you go. Close up film of airplanes spraying chemtrails. No, these are air sampling tools." My point being, they always lie. Why? I don't know. Some guy named Christ Consciousness says, "How do you suggest we go about proving what's in the exhaust of airplanes?" Again, they always come out like, "We don't know. It's a mystery. Nobody knows. It's a question. We have to solve it, we truthers." And they always operate on the premise that it's not known because we don't know. And then they shift the burden of proof. I said to him here, "You shifted the burden of proof so you can advance an argument from ignorance. You loaded the question with the assumption that the trails behind the plane are a mystery. These are bad faith questions." Flat Earth friend said to me, "Well, what are chemtrails? Can you define them so we can see if we agree with you or not?" And I said, "I don't believe in them. You tell me." So this back and forth was insane because instead of just saying, "Yes, I believe in them," or "No, I don't," he said this quote, "You fail to explain how asking for a definition of the term is reversing the burden of proof. I'm just asking for a definition so we both know what you're saying isn't true, so it's clear to everyone." That's a word salad. How about yes or no, please? Why can't they do it? It is such a joke. But anyway, I have a prediction. One more time. Witsit Gets It will never talk about chemtrails because he would have to pretend he doesn't understand the logical fallacies required to make the claim. He doesn't want to explain his non belief to his subscribers. It's an unpopular truth. And I find too that, yeah, they're all the same. They don't have any confidence when you ask them to make affirmative statements. They will not make an affirmative, "I believe." Jake M says, "I can prove you wrong in 30 seconds. Okay, well, let's see. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, it's Jake.
Okay, what's up, Jake M? You said you can prove chemtrails exist in 30 seconds. The floor is yours.
Well, oh, no, I said I was going to prove you wrong in 30 seconds. But just answer me this. You say it's ice. Well, how can ice stay in the air that long? I mean, if you look at a chemtrail, it's hard not to see them if you walk outside. But they can stay there all afternoon sometimes. So you're saying the ice can stay suspended up in the air?
Yeah,
That's all it is? It's ice?
the cirrus clouds at 25,000 feet, depending on the air currents, may move laterally. They may disperse, and they may stay at that layer. So and they may linger, like any clouds. Any clouds staying afloat. And yeah, what I'm saying is that they're mostly just ice crystals, and whether or not they stay depends on the prevailing conditions. And the reason why they're swirling like that is they're following the wingtip vortices.
Well, that's impossible. That's totally wrong. There's no way. Absolutely not.
Well, here's what makes this is what makes sense. Every 1,000 feet you climb, it's 2 degrees colder, and the air is much thinner. It's rarefied at that altitude. So you got your really thin air, and it's freezing cold. Now you got hot jet exhaust with particulates in it in a craft moving several hundred miles per hour. That hot air is just condensing in those conditions, but you're not going to have chemtrails lower or contrails lower because it's dependent on altitude. And it's like on a winter day, you throw boiling hot water out in the freezing temperature, what happens? Instantaneously, it condenses.
Well, look, I'm no chemtrail expert or anything. I don't argue with anybody about it, but I mean, I see with my own eyes that they're spraying something. I mean, you can see two planes at the exact same height, but by your eye, I mean, roughly the same height. one will be spraying, leaving a thick trail, and then all of a sudden it'll stop. Why does it just stop suddenly after a while? They'll be spraying hard for 10 minutes, going thick trails, and then all of a sudden it just stops.
That can be explained by
I mean, that makes
the sky's not homogeneous in temperature. It's it's just invisible. It's not homogeneous, and so you may have the condensation breaking up, like it looks like Morse code. And if one plane is 1,000 feet higher, 2,000 feet higher, that makes all the difference. It may not occur at that altitude. In fact, they can specifically say to the planes, they can have them adjust their altitudes to not leave trails. They can actually anticipate this. And this is a plan that NASA has. They say we can reduce the number of condensation trails by changing the
piece of paper,
altitudes.
straight line.
Yep, it's all about the altitude.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that to some extent, but it still doesn't explain. 'Cause I see drones all the time. I'm not far from a naval base. I see low-flying drones at nighttime spraying a drone, making no noise. It's not a jet plane, but the point is, nobody really knows what's in them, but they're definitely spraying something. That's all I'm saying, is that it's not contrails, but it's something. I mean, it could be something detrimental to us. I doubt it, because everybody's got to breathe in the air.
That's another point too. Why would they spray
So,
their own? Why would they dump it? Why would they destroy the environment that we all have to share? That never made sense to me either. If you use that motive as, oh, they're so bad they would spray us. Like, no, I don't think so. But, we're going to continue to debate this
right.
subject. I appreciate your point of view. I'm just saying that the spray, the premise that they're spraying is an incorrect framing of it, because it's suggesting that there's something in the plane that's being dumped out. And if you look at the length of these trails and the volume, there isn't enough substance in an airplane that could leave all that. The
Right,
high,
exactly. It runs out. That's just what I said earlier. It runs out. At a certain point, they stop because it runs out. They don't have a infinite amount to spray with. But once that one stops, you can bet there'll be another one behind it and will take over, a few minutes later. But that's all. But Tim, I'm not I got common sense. I've been looking at all this stuff for 10 years now. I like your channel. I like a lot of what you do. But I never argue with people about chemtrails, because we don't know what's in it. You know what I mean? I don't claim to know, but
right. It's an
my
odd.
eyes
It's
tell me
odd.
they are
I,
spraying something.
Nobody debates this. It's always like it's a point of agreement, and I think it needs to be debated and discussed to get to the bottom of it, one way or the other. Because right now it's not coherent enough, and
Yeah, I
so
mean,
I'm just trying to get everybody on the same sheet.
right. I mean, but we should know. There should be answers. I mean, some states have banned it. Why did they ban it? I mean, I'm sure it's written in there somewhere, but I mean, the public should have the right to know, but you know, we never will.
Well, I
It's like the crap they're putting in our food.
I appreciate the call, and we'll continue this
Yeah.
conversation because it's not ending. But yeah, thanks for calling and clarifying your points, and have a great
Yeah.
evening. Call back anytime.
All right, come on. Take care, man. Take care.
All right. And this isn't really a quote debate, but it is a conversation. And I don't know if any of you have chemtrail fatigue. I find this to be useful because if something is true, it's true. Facts don't care about our opinions or feelings. But if it's true, it should be able to be demonstrated without sophistry, without indirection, without having to ask questions to lead people to come to their own conclusions. We should already just provide the evidence. At this point, it's like prove it. And asking the question isn't proving it. So what I want to do is I want to stop these questions, like what are they spraying? It should in fact be they need to stop dumping barium and strontium and whatever on us. They need to stop dumping poisons on us. They need to stop blotting the sun. These airlines are complicit in blocking the sun. These airlines are killing our crops. Like, let's just be more direct, but let's have facts. What we have right now are these very weak, incoherent arguments. What are they doing? It's a mystery. And it's not even a mystery. But these do raise interesting points, these questions. Like, for example, what are they spraying? Like, I don't think that's a valid question. Instead, you should be saying, they are spraying blank. And if you're not saying they are spraying blank, then why not? It means that you haven't done the research. And what I accuse chemtrail proponents of is shifting the burden of proof instead of doing their own research, therefore asking bad faith questions. If you're serious about it and you seriously believe it's a problem, then you should be serious about defining the problem. It's not enough to say, what is it? At this point, we need to be the investigators. And I would get behind, in fact, we had a caller, upside down guy, who said he would get behind suing NASA. I would get behind suing the airlines. I will get in front of it. If someone wants to pay for a lawsuit, the IPS will sue Southwest Airlines, Delta Airlines. We'll sue the airlines. Class action. Why? For chemtrails. Make them prove they aren't chemtrails. Make them, in the process of discovery, exonerate themselves. We have to make the accusations. If we want to shift the burden of proof and get answers, if we want to force answers, if we want to raise the topic and make this topic more popular than anything else, then we have to get some action behind it. Like the climate change people have it figured out. They're suing governments, they're vandalizing art, they're setting themselves on fire, they're gluing themselves to airplanes, they're doing all kinds of stuff. And they're getting arrested. And what are we doing? Nothing. And upside down guy, yes, your call was great. And the points you raised was simply that um, we're observing the same thing, but we all have different definitions. So what I'm thinking is, let's go after this. Let's do this. Immortal AI says it would be nice to see evidence from the chemical trail camp rather than speculation. Exactly. Exactly. Let's do it. Anybody wants to get behind a lawsuit? I will do it. And I don't believe in it. Like, I 100% don't believe in it. But I will get behind this. I will get behind a class action lawsuit just to show that I'm not here to be pugnacious, contentious. I don't really think that debates for their own sake are good. I think instead we ought to have dispassionate parsing of the facts, arriving at the truth. Ollie Goering says, no one's suing McDonald's for serving baby burgers. What about Save the Children? Yeah, that always surprised me too. The apathy of the believers. Oh, you believe in nukes and you're not ducking and covering? You believe in space junk and you're not sleeping with a helmet on? You believe McDonald's is serving baby burgers and you're not protesting cannibalism in your neighborhood? Like, believers who don't have actions commensurate with their beliefs are a strange crop. I really don't understand them. Okay, Angle Elevation says, why doesn't anyone talk about 99% of chemtrails being just weather trails to know which way the wind is blowing, to know flight trails and weather? Because there's no satellites doing this. Copaesthetic says, let's sue NASA for making bad ISS movies. Yeah, I'm down. I'm 100% behind it. I will sue NASA for mental anguish, but I want to do it publicly. I'm not trying to get some payout. I'm not looking to win a lottery. I want them to pay us for brain damage. I mean, we may have cured ourselves, but we have to deal with a lot of brain damage. Nasatology. What an abusive cult. I mean, Scientology, we can all agree. Scientology is a destructive, evil cult that ruins lives and promotes fake space and is there for no other reason than mind control, right? Similarly, Nasatology is a doomsday cult. It's beyond just space junk. They have us scared about everything. NASA's a doomsday cult. It's a utopian scheme. It's a scam. I mean, it's a slush fund for whatever projects they're involved in. But yeah, it's a huge scam. I think they should be sued. They should be sued for petrified wood passed off as moon rocks. They should be sued for collaborating with other scam artists. Like the whole Mousegate thing, that should be brought up. Like, wait until we have discovery. We want to see emails. Emails between the astronauts and Who knows? Disney or whoever's doing their special effects. Sue, satellites don't exist. Yeah, exactly. Now, I do believe in Loon X. Do you remember Loon X? I saw them twice. I saw a Loon X balloon. I was like, what the hell is this? So I look it up. So I see this balloon up in the sky, way higher than the clouds, had to have been massive, and I could see there's some object inside of it. But it turns out this was the Google Loons, the Loon X, Loon LLC, and they were providing internet access to rural areas using high altitude balloons in the stratosphere. So, like 16 miles up, they created a wireless network. Now, this was done like 13 years ago, from 2011 to 2021. The balloons were maneuvered by adjusting their altitude in the stratosphere to float to a wind layer with the desired speed and direction. Users of the service connected to the balloon network with an antenna attached to their building. The signal traveled balloon to ground-based stations. So for 10 years, you had Satelloons providing internet, Loon X. What happened to Loon X? Loon X went out of business because it was not profitable. So they said. The company would be shut down to a lack of profitability. But what replaced it? CubeSats, Starlink. In other words, Starlink arrived just as Loon X went away. But Loon X was doing just fine. We can serve the internet to anyone anywhere with stratospheric balloons. But no, that's not profitable. We're going to use orbiting CubeSats, 17,000 miles per hour, a few hundred miles above the surface of the Earth. That's where you're going to be. Does it make any sense if you really think about it? And by the way, these are stationary. Some people say they've seen lights in the sky. Maybe it was balloons. No, you didn't see these. Nobody's ever seen satellites orbiting. That's a lie. But these balloons did just fine, and I think they were just rebranded. I think Loon X became Starlink. That's what I'm saying. 16 miles up. I don't believe they phased these things out. Disclosed TV. Oh, yeah, this is good news. Bad news, actually. Good to know. Not surprising. 6-3, SCOTUS allows federal governments to press social media to remove harmful misinformation. The challenge against this lacks standing. What does this mean? The Supreme Court of the United States just violated the First Amendment, or they voted that they can. That, yeah, they can certainly put pressure on social media to control the flow of harmful misinformation. Now, what does harmful mean? True. Fact-based. Off-world stage. Informed. Okay, let's move on here. We're going to get to the bottom of so many issues, and hopefully we won't have to talk about them forever. We'll get past it. This is something we predicted, the MAGA terrorists. I said this like 2 days ago. I'm like, wait until they bring out MAGA terrorists. They're going to bring out the MAGA ban. A man wearing a Make America Great Again hat was shot and killed by Las Vegas police after he pointed out, he was at his apartment. He was the one at the apartment complex. But he pointed a rifle at them and they shot him, so they killed a MAGA. Here's an interesting meme. You can't see an airplane 8 miles away in the sky, but you can see Starlinks 342 miles above in space. Starlinks, much like ISS transits, are also fake. Nobody has seen Starlink satellites. The best we have are anecdotal claims, and I reject those. So if all you have is anecdotal, if you watch Starlink for like 10 minutes and you didn't get your phone, you didn't see it from my perspective. I can't allow it. We don't allow anecdotal. So again, if it was so easy to see these things, you would just go out and see them. There used to be these news reports. Astronomers are mad because Starlink satellites are ruining the night sky. I don't take their word for it. I have seen no such evidence. Okay, another one. Yeah, somebody says Tim Osmond thought criminal. They have invented the thought crime. The thought crime is now a thing. The thought crime is based on the premise of a mind virus, transmissible memes, evidence that can be, I'm sorry, memes that can be spread from mind to mind, much like you catch a cold. Contagious thoughts. That's what they're really aiming at here. So they're suggesting that mind viruses exist, but the only ones that you're allowed to have are those that are sanctioned by the state, those that aren't censored. This is why I refer to the general public as having mind aids, maids, no mental immune system. Their minds are open to all government programming. Any programming from outside of that is considered to be dangerous misinformation. And that's what the Supreme Court is ruling on. They have to be able to protect the public from unauthorized thoughts, unauthorized mind viruses. We have an update here. This is from a court ruling. Garrett Ziegler he tried his best to have the case of hacking against him dismissed. This has specific interest to this channel because I am suing the hacker that Garrett Ziegler hired. And I've been saying for some time that this hacker is going to be doxxed and it's going to be a disaster for him. Well, here is an update. Garrett Ziegler is done in by one of his photos. He actually kind of more or less condemned himself here. But here's what happened. The judge ruled that this will move forward as a hacking case, not mere defamation. This is exactly what I'm doing. You know, Google's trying to say we didn't have any part in the defamation. It's like, it's not about that. It's about the invasion of privacy, the hacking, the fraud. But listen to this. The judge said they're now opening the way for discovery of the, quote, specific means and personnel involved in the exploitation of Hunter Biden's hard drive, including the chain of custody via which Ziegler obtained it. They're going to find out, quote, who funded his efforts and who helped him exploit the data. Who did it? Who funded it? Marcus Goldfinch. Who hacked it? Marcus Goldfinch. Who published it? Who crowdfunded the money for it? Who raised money on Stripe? Goldfinch, Goldfinch, Goldfinch. Goldfinch is going to be doxxed. He's going to be doxxed in discovery by Hunter Biden. When his name drops, the following will happen. This is what's going to surface. 1, QAnon was run out of the White House, in part by Marcus Goldfinch. 2, he's a hacker. My lawsuit will be a source for his criminality. There is evidence, public record, in my suit against Goldfinch that proves this. This bolsters Hunter's suit versus Ziegler and Marco Polo. This could result in Garrett Ziegler facing criminal charges alongside Goldfinch. 3, this will bring about, and this will cause to surface YouTube's complicity in suppressing the IPS. This will be right in the middle of this controversy, and all of this was enabled by the exposure of Marcus Goldfinch. And 4, once he's named as a defendant, I will have a place to serve him papers and further lawsuits if he hasn't been doxxed by my own suit by then. So he's about to be doxxed. Nothing can stop it. Right now, as far as the lawsuit goes, we're awaiting the pretrial conference, which is on the 22nd of July. Google motioned to dismiss, laughably saying that Goldfinch did it. They didn't, but this was done with the help of a YouTube employee. So what I did is I said that they're negligent, no matter what the intention of John Doe, and that this John Doe YouTube employee should be dragged into the courtroom as another defendant. So I asked the court to do this, and I asked them to take action to initiate criminal charges against this person and Goldfinch. Finally, Goldfinch has been served. I had him served at the Marco Polo office, at Garrett Ziegler's office. I had him served, and they received the papers, and he has until the 2nd of July to respond. And a non-response will be more damaging than anything. And a non-response is a response. So we're getting our response, but that's where the lawsuit is at right now. See what's in the chat here. JC says, will we need a mask to listen to you in the future? Yes.
90 seconds.
In the future, there won't be any more of this. I really believe here that we're one debate away from getting rid of chemtrails, which is good news. You know how it's really good news that we have eliminated the belief in mass shooters and terrorist attacks because we know these things are just fake, optional beliefs, contemporary myths, but not real? Like, that's progress, right? That's good news. You no longer live under the assumption that you could be killed at any moment by some madman dictator with a nuclear warhead. No, this is fear free. That's good news. It should be good news when there are no longer chemtrails over Trutherville. It would be like eliminating belief in climate change. Like, it's actually a pretty big deal. You have this dark cloud, chemical laden cloud over your head, and I'm going to dispel that. And they're mad at me right now, but when we have destroyed the very premise of the belief, I think a lot of them will thank us. We'll liberate them from their doomsday cult. Commenter says, weather manipulation is causing flooding all over the world. Look at Doppler radar. You can see the nanoparticulates as they use towers frequency. I think that there's a vested interest in having us believe that man can destroy and alter the weather and the climate. The left wing wants you to believe it, but they want you to blame the private sector. They want you to blame big trucks. They want you to blame consumerism and capitalism. The right wing wants you to believe in it, but they want you to blame secret government projects. And they want you to blame Republicans and carbon footprints and having too many kids and breathing. But they both believe. And what I'm saying here is that Auto Hoaxology 101, this book, is meant to consolidate non-believers. We are fomenting a culture of non-belief. If you're a believer and you don't know, that's an issue. There's a gap that you need to close. If you believe there's something wrong, what are they spraying? It's incumbent on you to answer your own question. You have to move from being a passive believer to an active seeker and eventually a knower. You will find yourself involved in something at some point if you're seeking where you're able to get those answers. Maybe you'll end up at an airport. Maybe you will go talk to some pilots. But if you're not seeking, if you're just passively repeating fears, then you're a believer and you're in a cult. And, that's okay. You can be in a cult. This is a cult. But there are differences between doomsday cults, which are destructive, and constructive cults, which are really just based on shared values rather than conforming to something. All right, I think we've covered quite a lot. I didn't get through everything. We did spend quite a bit of time talking about contrails, but it's important because we're dealing with it. Valai We See says, how come the almighty AI can't even spell? How is it going to end mankind? Okay, what else? Is the time of the ISS dependent on the time zone they are zooming over? I'm not sure where they base it on. Do you think says, is space water, or are they just going in the ocean and actually seeing what's down there? Or messing about, which is likely true drills. Now, I am open to the possibility that even though NASA is involved in faking space, they could be dealing with stuff at the bottom of the ocean, or even deep beneath the Earth. It could easily be that deep space is deep below our feet. Julian Assange was freed yesterday. We brought this up, 62424, which gives you 666. He was in there for 1,901 days. Kind of a 9/11-y number. I personally don't see Julian Assange as anything more than a two-dimensional character that energizes the QAnons, makes them believe that there's some guy on the inside trying to leak information to save the world, but he's not an auto-hoaxer. And if he doesn't talk about space being fake, then he's not at the cutting edge, not even close. So I don't really find anything that he says to be all that relevant to my interests. But my interests are from outside of the box and the outside of the box perspectives. This is one of these heroes they provide for those people who are inside the box, inside of the box within the box. So I'm not really all that interested in that character, but there's a lot of talk about it. A lot of QAnoners are convinced that he's related to Donald Trump, which is also kind of peculiar, because of course the QAnoners, it's fan fiction at this point, but everybody's got to be related. Trump's the son of Marilyn Monroe and General Patton. They just make it up as they go. It's a fan fiction based religion. Anyway, thanks for joining. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. This is Chief Crow. Space is fake.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not black and white. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of polka dots.